Hi guys, Jason here from Headfirst. We're back for part 2 of the restoration of this 50 watt non-master volume JMP. I'll put a link here for part 1 if you want to check it out. We're going to get straight in to looking at the fully restored amp on the bench, and I'll take you through some tones of what this thing sounds like now. Alright guys, we're back looking at this 1979 JMP, and this was quite the rebuild actually, right? What I discovered when I really kind of drilled into the modded circuit that I was given, it was a 3-stage plate fed. Okay, this amp is factory stock. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Dan Gower, who posted a comment in the part 1 video and pointed out that he'd worked on maybe 50 of these, something like that anyway. That 3-stage plate fed tone stack was a base spec circuit that Marshall used and delivered from the factory back in the day. And I recall that I'd worked on one of these once before and even did a video on it, and you know, I didn't remember. Go figure. I'll put a link to that video right now, right? So bear in mind when I talk about modifications in this video, it's actually a factory Marshall. Nonetheless, we have restored this to a 1987 lead spec amp. It's a 3-stage plate fed. So this triode here, which is normally the cathode follower, was completely disconnected, and the tone stack, that kind of crazy tone stack that was kind of, you know, hung off the pots here, was being driven by V2A. So we had kind of like parallel gain stages here, the classic kind of plexi style front end, a single gain stage on this side driving the tone stack, and then into the phase inverter. If I just take you through the rebuild, we'll start at the preamp end as we normally do and work our way down. 820 ohm cathode resistor here, that was correct and already in place. I've added this is a 220 microfarad bypass cap. So this will kind of set up the cathode for the normal channel. The treble channel had a 4K7 cathode, right? So that's come out, and I put a 2K7 in, 0.68 bypass cap here. That's a 63 volt MKT 1813 cap. They're great in the bypass position. This was all okay here. First coupler, I've moved to a 0.0022. I just way prefer that. And is actually on spec for a Mark II 1987 model. This is a Weimar cap, and as I've used here in the tone stack as well, these things sound great and they just drop in beautifully into the spacing on a Marshall ST1 board. So they're actually really handy to have on hand for this kind of work. The 470k mixer resistors were okay in stock. This was missing. This is a 470 picofarad. It's the Vishay 562R series. This was a 1K5 that came out. That's now an 820 ohm cathode. That's the cathode for V2A. 100K cathode. This is a cathode for the cathode follower, right, for V2B. This was not on the board, right? As I mentioned, there was V2B was not even being used, let alone set up as a cathode follower. So that's gone in. We had no treble cap here. That's again a 470 picofarad, same as this one. The there was nothing in this position on the board, and the yellow cap that was here was a 0.047. Right, so again, incorrect spec for a standard Marshall tone stack. So these are now both 0.022, and like this, they're the same series of cap, just larger. Slope resistor here, well, yeah, it was 220k, right? So 33k standard Marshall. These are the 10k droppers, right? So this 10k dropper here, which drops you from the phase inverter supply into the supply node. You can see it on the PCB here, the supply node for V2. This was bypassed. There was no resistor in here. So effectively the filtering for the phase inverter had been connected to the filter for, basically the plate that would have been for V2A. Okay, so we had basically 100 microfarads, bridge the two filters together, so 50 microfarad here and 50 microfarad here, 100 microfarad filter for what was the plate-fed tone stack. So that's come out. I put a 10k 2-watt carbon film in here. Again, I'm just restoring. There's no magic here, guys, just nice restoration job. Bring this back to standard Marshall. The rest of the amp was all okay, and this is one of the lower voltage 50-watt JMPs. Okay, so it's got about 370 volts on the plates, B+, and it only had one 10k dropper in the second position here as bypass. So that's cool, because that allows us, even with the lower plate voltage, it means our phase inverter supply and the rest of the preamp is kind of okay. Still a little bit low compared to the higher voltage Marshalls, but it's okay. Brand new bias caps here, filter caps. These are the Sprague caps, same brand as this one I'm used here. These are 10 microfarad, 150 volt DC. Completely rebuilt the EQ here, right? So thankfully this ceramic cap here, which was used in the previous plate-fed tone stack, this is a 4,700 picofarad cap, so I was able to reuse it as the bright cap for the treble channel. So this is a 1 meg pot, this is a 1 meg pot, that's okay. This is the treble pot, which in a Marshall of this era, we want 250k linear, 250k B. This is a mid pot, 25k linear all day long in a standard Marshall EQ. This was a 220k audio taper pot in that crazy plate-fed tone stack. The base pot, 1 meg audio all day long, and that was thankfully 1 meg audio. And the presence pot is a 25k linear with the 4k7 arrangement. It's a 0.1 presence cap, so I'm kind of happy with that. So I had to change these two pots over and then rewire this whole thing to get it back to standard Marshall. The stock amp did not have screen resistors, so it looked like from the factory this one didn't have screen grid resistors put in at all. So I've put in 1k 5-watt screen resistors on here, always a good idea. And thanks for hanging around for part 2, guys, and I'll catch you on the next video.